All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're cracking open something called the resonance code. We're going to explore how real, true influence is actually forged from the inside out.
You know that feeling, right? You walk into a room and you can just feel the power dynamics, even before anyone says a word. Or maybe you've seen those leaders who command respect without ever raising their voice. Well, that unspoken energy, that's exactly what we're going to decode today. And that feeling is so incredibly powerful because, get this, a staggering 93% of our communication is nonverbal. I mean, think about that. It's this whole other language of posture, tone, and just presence. And it speaks way, way louder than words ever could. And this really gets to the heart of what we're exploring. See, true influence, it's not some technique you just learn and perform. No, it's a resonance, something you actually emit. It's an energy that radiates directly from your internal state.
Okay, so if our inner world really does create our outer impact, you've got to be asking how. What's the actual mechanism behind all this? Well, let's go ahead and look at the source code.
The engine driving this whole thing is this really cool concept called ideological alchemy. Think about it. Like the old alchemists trying to turn lead into gold, this is all about transforming our own consciousness. It's this deliberate, intentional process of refining our thoughts, our speech, and our behaviors until they actually truly embody our highest ideals. And what's fascinating is that this process works like a self-reinforcing cycle. It all starts inside, right? With our thoughts and beliefs. Those thoughts then shape the words we use, our language. And that language, it pushes us towards certain actions and behaviors. And over time, those actions start to solidify, becoming our actual identity, which, in turn, shapes the reality we experience. See how each step just flows right into the next? And this leads to a pretty powerful and maybe even a little uncomfortable truth for anyone in a leadership position. If you look at your team and see results you don't want, reactivity, disengagement, maybe a total lack of innovation, that's not an accident. It means that your internal system, your thoughts, your words, your actions, is perfectly designed to get that exact outcome. Oof, that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's crucial.
Okay, to make this really tangible, let's look at a tale of two leaders. We're going to compare two people who emit completely different resonances, the manager versus the steward.
So, on one side, you have Eric, the manager. His whole world is about controlling resources and hitting targets. It's very transactional. But then you have Emily, the steward. Her focus is completely different. It's about nurturing potential and multiplying value for everyone involved. You can already see they're running on two completely different internal operating systems, right?
And as you'd expect, the results couldn't be more night and day. Eric's team, they're struggling. Yeah, he hits his targets, but at what cost? You see high turnover, stagnant innovation. He's basically burning out his people. Now, Emily's team, they're absolutely thriving. Innovation is high, well-being is a priority, and that leads to real sustainable growth. The key difference is she's creating a thriving ecosystem, not just a profitable machine.
Okay, so at this point, you're probably thinking, I get it. My internal state matters. But the big question, the crucial question is, how do we actually intentionally shape it? Well, to answer that, we need to enter what's called the Waymaker's Forge.
And this metaphor is so important. For most of us, when we think of self-improvement, we treat it like building a library. We just passively collect more and more knowledge, right? More books, more podcasts. But a forge is active. It's where you take the raw materials, that knowledge, your intuition, and you apply heat and pressure, through deep thought and practice. And what comes out is something entirely new, embodied wisdom. This is the big shift from just consuming information to actively creating character. Now, a key ingredient you need in this forge is a Finnish concept, and I love this word, sisu. Now, this isn't just grit. Grit is what gets you through the hard stuff. Sisu is the extraordinary determination that kicks in when you feel like you have absolutely nothing left in the tank. It's an action-oriented mindset that doesn't just see barriers, it transforms them into frontiers. It's the force that literally begins where grit ends. So if the forge is the workshop, then the Waymaker Code is its operating system. Think of these as the core principles that guide all the work. They're what ensure your actions are always aligning with your values, that you're relentlessly pursuing your goals, that you're forging courage by acting in spite of fear, and that everything is built on a solid foundation of truth and integrity. All right, this brings us to the ultimate transformation, the real endgame here. Once you start to master your internal state, you can make what is probably the most profound shift a leader can make, moving from being the source of power to becoming a conduit for it.
And let's be really clear on this point because it's crucial. Being a conduit does not mean being passive. It's not about just stepping aside and letting things happen. No way. It's about actively, deliberately building the internal discipline and character, that structural integrity that's required to handle and channel immense power through you to your team.
And the difference here is it's stark. A leader who acts as the source has to drive everything themselves. They become the bottleneck, right? Everything has to pass through them. But a leader who acts as a conduit, they channel the vision, they channel the resources, and in doing so, they create an empowered, resilient organization that can actually thrive, even when they're not in the room.
So how do you build that kind of structural integrity? Well, it rests on 3 absolute pillars. First, radical responsibility. That means owning all outcomes, period. No excuses. Second, sacrifice for the mission. It's about putting the mission above your own personal comfort. And third, leading to serve others. It's a deep understanding that true leadership is about service. It's about lifting others up, not just building up your own status.
You know, when you pull it all together, you realize this entire philosophy isn't really about momentary achievements. It's not about hitting the next quarterly target. It's about the long game. It's about the echo you leave behind, the impact you have on the lives of the people you lead. It's about your legacy.
And that brings us to the final question. And this one's for you to take with you. I want you to really think about this. When you look at your actions, your words, and your thoughts, today, right now, what is the living legacy that you are forging?